Yeah. It's all right, don't worry. Just I'll sort it. You mate. Right. Right, hello everybody. Welcome down to the paddock here for the Raceparts Historic 750 Formula. As you can see, we've come back down. We're going to grab a word with somebody very important to the championship. Lyndon Thruston is just behind me here, just getting the car ready for race 2. Things didn't quite go so well in qualifying and the race, but we'll catch up with him very, very shortly. Before we do that, let's just have a look at the race results from race 1. If you just pop that graphic up on the screen, as you can see, Richard Pryor was your Class C race winner, John Village in second, Tim Sage in third, Martin Depper in fourth. It was some fantastic racing, wasn't it? It really was. Graham Wilson came out in fifth, Trevor Slatter in sixth. Then Al Frayling Cork, your Class AS winner, Timothy Roebuck in eighth, Mike Whitby in ninth, then Simon Gallen in eighth, and Charlie Plain-Jones picking up the Class A honours indeed. Let's pop that down because we're going to have a chat with somebody who's incredibly important. Here he is, Lyndon. It's been an eventful day for you so far, hasn't it? It really has.
It has been an exciting day. We had head gasket problems back at Keble Park. We solved them to finish third in race 2. Car was absolutely fantastic. Arrived here today, race 2, having prepared the car, and head gasket failed again in practice, no. Exactly the same as previously. So we changed that, got out in race 1, and for some reason we lost one of the nuts on the tappet, and it was safer to pull off than it was to risk carrying on and damaging the engine. Yeah. We think we're sorted. You never really know until you go back out on the track.
Fingers crossed, because race 2 coming up at 4 o'clock.
And it's race 2, and of course race 2, my dad's doing race 2. We shared the car today, we shared practice. So he's not done a lot yet in the car other than the mandatory qualifying laps. Yeah. Handicap makes it more exciting. Yeah. He'll start potentially slightly further forwards though, because we had not a good practice. We might start at quite a good slot, so it might be quite entertaining.
Well, look, I really wanted to catch up with you, Lyndon, because we spoke the other day, didn't we? We did a little preview show the other day. We've just got a jumbo jet going above our heads here at Donington right now.
Dropping loads of grease and oil on the track for us.
Yeah, I think so. I wanted to catch, because everybody I've spoken to has been singing your praises about the historic 750 Formula, about how you've turned it around. You've got more cars back on the grid. Just tell us about, first of all, how did you get involved in the championship?
So my dad got me involved. He started in an Austin 7, 2005. He did a few seasons and he said, you really ought to have a go. I thought, I'm not sure I fancy that particular car. Later on down the line, he bought a Class C car, which is similar to this. And he said, have a go. And I thought, I can't afford that. And he said, here's the money for the helmet. Wow. Have a go. And here's the money towards your ards. Have a go. And I thought, well, I've got to have a go now. Yeah. And now I'm in my 11th season.
Wow.
So absolutely hooked. I think when people start racing, they think that it's really, really hard to get into, and it's not. There's not as many barriers as people think. Yeah. The yards is much more straightforward than people think. And,
I mean, everybody here, it doesn't matter whether you're doing a historic Formula or the other stuff you've seen, you have to go through your yards, and it's very easy to get booked in for your yards.
It's really easy. I did my yards having never been on a track. You do 3 laps of practice with the instructor telling you what to do. The next 3 laps is your test. Right. And I passed mine first time off, which was fantastic, and quite a lot of people do. It is quite a straightforward thing to do. As long as you're sensible and you give people space and you're going at a reasonable speed, the yard isn't anything to fear. You actually learn a lot more in your early races than you do.
Yes, I can imagine.
In that examination.
Well, it's like your driving test, and they say you really start learning once you've passed. That's what they say.
Absolutely, yeah. And you talked about turning the series around, so it's been a massive group effort. I took over from a chap, John Gaskin, who did the series rep role for 10 years. Wow. Yeah. So a massive mammoth effort from John. And he put a lot of good foundations in. And when I took over, along with some others who we call our committee, we went down the historic route. So we went for a rebrand, put in some control regulations on tyres and camshafts in the Reliant engines. And we just started doing a bit more about publicity.
Yeah.
And you can see generally, you know, the cars, when everyone's got their cars set up well, you can get the top 5 cars qualifying within a second of each other. It can be really very competitive now.
It's not just about the racing though. This is a passion. I was chatting to John Miles a little bit earlier, and he was saying, I can take my car to the south of France, I park it next to a Ferrari, and people are leaning on the Ferrari to take a picture of my car instead. It's quite something. There's so much history and heritage, even in just the paddock now.
I think what people may not be aware of is the 750 Formula, and we're racing really what were the original 750 Formula cars, which were Austin 7s, and these Class C cars developed out of that later on, is the longest running championship. Now, the current 750 Formula run the Fiat engines, and we run their, if you like, retired cars that they progressed away from. And so there is massive historical significance to the club and to the series.
Yeah, and look, we just see that. I mean, up at Assembly area, what a treat it really, really is. As I said before, this is something that you're never going to let this go, are you? It's going to stay with you forever, right?
That's right, and a lot of people, there are people that go off and they go and try other Formula. My dad he's tried, Formula Renault, he's tried an old Lotus 20 in the HSCC, and he's got a Brabham, and he comes back to the 750 Club. And I think it's the people as well.
Yes.
We've got a fantastic atmosphere of people, and you've probably seen today when you've walked around the paddock, someone has a problem, everyone comes to help. Yeah. And it's like it all the way through this series. Not just on the race weekend, but outside the race weekend. If I have a problem and I go away today, I can ring a couple of my mates and they'll help me get the car back together, back on track, because they want you on the track. They don't want you in the paddock. They're not thinking, yes, he's not started and I can get some more points. They're thinking, that's a shame, we want more cars out. But we had a good start this year. I think we had something like 22 cars at Cadwell, first race of the season. 26 today. We actually had more entries today. We had about 29. A couple had to withdraw, unfortunately, which is a mammoth grid. And in fact, 4 years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, we struggled a little bit. Now we're getting to the other end. Now we're getting to reaching the capacity max on the grid slots, which is fantastic.
And that's what we want, isn't it, for the long-term future? Although, having said that, it's been around forever, and it's going to be around for a long time. One question I always have, and I've asked a couple of the drivers, the accessibility. We talk about getting involved with the series and how you do it. This isn't something you can just go down to a car dealer, a second-hand car dealer, and pick up. How do you? Where do you start?
That's right. So a lot of the cars tend to come through myself or other people in the committee. We do send them out. We have a list that we send information out and classifieds to. So generally, if they get in touch with the series, if they want to get involved, is the best way, because sometimes there are cars that are not advertised. You can build your own. You can start absolutely.
Which a number of the drivers have done, haven't they? I spoke to Roger Rowe earlier. He's
Roger
done it
Rowe, John Village, Paul Mason. They've all started from scratch, their own design of chassis, their own design of bodywork. They have to do it to period regulations. So they have to look at what was available pre-74, parts, technology and stuff like that. As you've seen on the cars today, we don't want anything too fancy. But you can design a brand new historic car and come racing with us. There are Austin 7s, there's 2 Austin 7s for sale at the moment, and there's a Class C car, there's 2 Class C cars available at the moment, and they're not hugely expensive. Racing isn't the cheapest sport to do, let's be honest, but we are a really cost-effective way to do it.
Absolutely. I'm going to let you go in a second. I know you're super busy. Race 2 coming up. It's the handicap race. Tell us a little bit more about the handicap involved.
So the handicap started about 3 years ago. The idea of the handicap was we would welcome other cars that aren't strictly in compliance with the rules of our formula. So other cars under 1500cc, we welcome them to come and join us so they can do the practice and the handicap day with us, because of course being a handicap standing start, the performance differentiation doesn't matter as much. So we have got a couple of people joining us today for that, taking advantage of that weekend.
It's almost like a mini invitational, I suppose. You could.
That's it. Yes. So again, get in touch if you've got an historic car under 1500cc. Look at our lap times. If you're doing similar type lap times, you can come and join us. There's 2 handicaps, one here, one Snetterton.
Brilliant.
And it's really, really exciting event. You'll see the stagger start from the grid, and you'll see the cars bunch up towards the end, and it's just a different way of going racing.
Fantastic. Look, I know you've got a lot to do, Lyndon. Thank you so much. You've given us such detailed insight there. I really appreciate it. Best of luck anyway. Well, you're not racing away, but best of luck to your dad anyway. Right, the rain has come down now. The wind is absolutely blowing a gale. One last time, let's just bring up the race 1 results on to the screen. There you go. You can see them up there. What are we going to see in race 2? As we said from Lyndon there, we have a handicap race. We're going to see a few different entrants in this one. We're going to bring you all of the action live. It's lights out at 4 o'clock. We're going to bring that down. We're going to head off now, get back to base, ready to set up for race 2 for the historic 750.